Yeah, hello and welcome to another update video about Bitcoin just after the daily candle close. Today we've got the Fed interest rate decision will take place here in the evening in the UK. So I'm going to do a live stream later, but it's another 18 hours or something to go. So yeah, we have to be a bit patient, but it will be an interesting day. Looking forward to it. So far, the overall structure unchanged from the previous video that I made you aware of, that we probably had here the wave 3 topped here. Again, here, don't want to confuse people too much, but it's possible to have the wave 3 here as well, or here. That in the short term, it doesn't make too much of a difference, but it just has an implication on where we will eventually land. At the moment, I've decided to go with this particular setup because it involves an actual trade setup. And as I said, when you have a tradable setup and the market puts a certain count into advantage, which means we have an actual setup to work with, then I'm following this count, which doesn't mean it has to work out, but it means you have the possibility here to trade a 1-2 setup. And anybody who already entered in the last or after my last video at least could have made some profits if it was a scalp trade or something. Or at least you could have moved up or moved down in this case, your stop loss into break even. That's always what I recommend, because we had a fairly strong reaction to the box here, but it came back quite quickly. So when you're trading this and when you trade the lower time frame, what you can do, you can, as soon as the price moves away, you quickly have to move down, in this case, your stop loss to break even. If you did that, the price came back, you either took a small profit or you were cut out in break even. Could have then re-entered here as well, yeah. And again, also that trade would be in profit. It's these tradable areas which are so relevant for these so-called 1-2 setups, yeah. Because the good thing is with these 1-2 setups, the purpose is, there is not necessarily. It doesn't mean they have to work out, but it means you have a very interesting reward to risk ratio. And that's all we can really look at as traders, investors, analysts. Where is the pivot point that can help me get a trade with a high reward and a low risk? Because especially here with these 1-2 setups, what you can get, if let's say 1-2 setup means we're trading the wave 3. Wave 3 target would take us to around the 1.618 FIB extension. Let me just double check that. So target would be around 20.9k for the wave 3, which means if I look at where the target would be and where I might set my stop loss, which would be probably above the 78.6 FIB or even lower if you want to, but what do you have? I mean, you've got a reward to risk at 5, which is an amazing reward to risk ratio. Depending on where you actually set your stop, that reward might actually go higher compared to the actual risk. So, for example, if you set it here just above the previous high, and you also entered here somewhere, then you basically have a possible reward to risk of about 22, which is great. You risk a little bit, but your possible profit is just very high. And you can lose let's say 70% of trades if you have such a reward to risk ratio, and it still will make you profitable. That's the good thing. If quality trades, look for the quality setups, which doesn't mean they have to work out. In fact, many of them will not. But if the reward exceeds by far the risk, you can be very successful, yeah. But so that's sort of where we are, and we have here another chance to come down from here. Again, unchanged wave count. Again, if the wave 3 was up here, we talked about this could be an ABC structure with a C wave coming down further would be the expectation for several reasons. First of all, we had a 5-wave move down, which indicates a C wave has started. Then, in most cases, if you have an ABC structure, the C wave would go below the A wave. And if we look at Fibonacci retracements, we get this green area as a support area between basically 20k and 22k, pretty much. And this means, in all likelihood, it should still go lower, which doesn't mean it has to. There is also the exotic pattern, so-called running flat. Okay, it's not that exotic, but in a so-called running flat pattern, we would have the possibility that the C wave already ended. And that could have ended here. At the moment, the move up, though, is not impulsive exactly. So at the moment, I'm following mainly the view that we should come down lower. So, but if we break, as I said, if we break above the white box, which is why there's, the stop loss should ideally be above the box, that would not strictly invalidate the 1-2 setup, but it would make it very unlikely. And then we have to again think about the idea that, maybe the wave 4 was already in. And what do we do then? Do we get emotional about it? No. All we need to do then is to look for the next trade setup the other way around. Yeah, basically a long trade setup. Because if the short trade setup breaks, we might get a long trade setup. And that's where we are at the moment. Yeah, no change to basically the previous assumptions, no change to the previous wave count. Just have a little bit of a messy price action here. Would have been nice to follow through directly to the downside, but it didn't happen. So obviously there are different. Again, I don't really want to get too detailed here about the lower level wave count, because this can have or can develop into various shapes and forms. I mean, a possibility would be, what could this have been? Possibly a WXY, where we had here an ABC, here an ABC. In this scenario, it could be finished, this wave 2. Another possibility, I mean, ABC might have been possible, but then it just looks like 2-3 wave structures here, right? So looks a bit like a WXY, but in the end that doesn't matter so much. Point is, we got rejected strongly again by the box for a second time. We've exited it to the downside again. Let's see. Further confirmation that we are really coming down is a break below those last 2 swing lows, which would be at 22.8k. Until then, there is of course still risk that this moves further to the upside. I did explain that in the Ethereum video, that of course we could get here a further extension to the upside, but that is, that's part of the game. That is sort of why short-term waves, or the lower degree waves, are quite fluid, flexible. While, for example, the assumption that wave 4 is starting here, that hasn't changed for a while. Of course, here the lower level price action changes a lot. Also, the waves change as the price action unfolds. That's why it's so important not to trade necessarily the count, but to trade the setups, the pivot points. Okay, that's where we are at the moment here with Bitcoin. I hope you liked the update. If you did, please hit the like button, leave a comment and subscribe. And if you really like the content, then please check out the channel membership. Thanks a lot for watching. Bye-bye.